Welcome in, Minnesota high school football fans. We're here with another interview. Head coach of the Monticello Magic, Coach Pierskalla. Coach, how are you doing today?
I'm great. Good morning.
Oh, man. Early August, this is the time when things get cooking for you and me. More so you, because you got a lot more things to do over and just managing a whole high school program. But I guess the first thing I want to get into is just hear about your kind of career arc, everything that happened. I think you played. I saw a few video clips of you playing at St. John, so there was an interview or something. But just talk about what got you to Monticello.
Sure. Yeah. I played for St. John's for John Gallardi. A lot of great memories there. Learned a lot about football. My first job actually out of college was at Maple Grove High School. I coached the D line. And that was before Lombo got there. And so the next year, Lombo gets there. And I actually then went to Wyzetta. So we kind of switched spots. And so I was with Brad Anderson at Wyzetta for a year. We went to a prep bowl. We were runners up. And then John called Gallardi and said, "Would you like to come back and coach with me?" And you can't say no to that, right? And so after 1 year at Wyzetta, I went back to St. John's and coached the D line. With Damian DeMonso and Gary Foshing. And then John retired. And then my time at Wyzetta, I met my now wife. I was living with my grandparents in St. Cloud. And I thought, I kind of like that math teacher at Wyzetta. So I should really get a real job, if you will. And so I took the D coordinator job at Bloomington Jefferson. And I was with Tim Carlson for a few years before joining Ryan Stockhouse as the D coordinator at Osseo. And then from Osseo, I became the head coach at Monticello.
Nice. And was that? It says 6 years. So was that before COVID? Was that during COVID? Was
Yep,
that
yep, that
after?
was during.
How was that process? Was it different in any way?
I think what's funny is we were quarantined. I had a player living with us. Another crazy story for a different time, but he had COVID, and so I had to then stay home and try to call a defense from the basement. So we streamed the game on our
Okay.
TV, and our sophomore D coordinator called me and he's like, "Well, what do you think of this?" I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, that sounds great."
That's uh,
So
that's
yeah,
great.
COVID was some crazy times, that's for sure.
Oh gosh, yes, definitely a story for a different day. The
Yes.
program motto, I guess every head coach has, kind of a phrase or a word that they want to put on their program for identity purposes. What's yours?
I don't know that we have one that's like catchy or anything, but we talk about having a blue collar work mentality. And our team gives us a hard time, but in our neck of the woods, we have hardworking community members and people, and our kids come from hard work and they watch hard work and they know what that looks like. And then it's just putting all that together, right? To where we want our program then to hit hard. We want to be known as hard hitting, and we want to be known as a team that's going to that's going to leave a lasting impression, and we're going to play the game the right way. And you're going to remember playing Monticello.
Yeah, but before we get into the season, I briefly want to touch on last season. You guys had a good season. You lost to Eastridge in a tough one end the season, but overall, I mean, I was at the first. Did I say Eastridge?
You did. That's
Elk
okay.
River. I have ER on my notes. Elk
That,
River,
right.
but
Yep.
and I was at the first Elk River Monticello game when I think you guys played at your house,
Yep.
and that obviously went your guys' way. Just talk about last season and kind of what your perspective on it was.
We were very fortunate to have a very great senior leadership group. Garrett Bauer, Cole Mueller, lots of others, Trevor Bodell. They're all gone now. They've left a lasting impression. We talk about leaving your mark on a program, and building upon foundations of other program success. And those guys definitely did. And we just had a really, really veteran group of players that really enjoyed each other's company, and then just built off some momentum. Because if you remember the year before, we actually went to state and played Elk River in state with Luke Emmerich's class. And so that was something that Monticello hadn't done since 1988. And so we were very proud of that accomplishment. So riding that wave and hoping to continue that success. So last year was so much fun. About as much fun as you can have as a football coach, where you have good leadership group. Your kids work hard, and you're winning football games, and that at the end of the day makes it really fun.
I feel like there's I don't know if it was already there before because I've kind of gotten in the scene, but like a Monticello talent pipeline. You talked about Luke, and I think you guys, Holthaus is a guy we'll talk about who I want to talk about. But I see talent. Has that always been a Monticello thing, or is that more of a recent trend?
I'd like to give the credit to Coach Telecki and what he did before I was there. He definitely built the program. There were some dark times, if you look at the record book. But football was back on the map, and that's Jason Telecki and our athletic director Gary Revnig. Those that have been to Monticello to see a football game know it's a pretty special place to play. Right, we don't have a track around our field, so the fans are up close, and we have a video board, and they get that rocking, and the music's loud, and the fans are great. And so that atmosphere, with some good football playing, is really a recipe for success.
Yeah. It seems like since you took over, Monticello's kind of on this upward trajectory, and you mentioned the state appearance 2 years ago, and last year. I don't like to view seasons like be result based because I think you guys were a state team. You just ran into another state team that stopped you from getting there, and that's kind of the reality of sections. But I guess how have you seen kind of the program? Do you kind of see it like I'm doing, kind of in this incline? And I think it might incline again this year with you guys.
Yeah, definitely. We're definitely in uncharted territory, and just chatting with Coach Telecki because he still teaches at the school, and we were comparing. I asked, I said, do you think last year's team was maybe the best that Monticello's had since maybe the '60s? It was hard for us to find a comparison, and I think with what we have returning this year, you're right. We could be looking for another successful year, but winning is something that for every program, right? When you're winning football games, you're building that culture. You're able to build that legacy, and kids start to really buy in because they see that the end is fun. It's championships. It's trophies. It's playing at US Bank, hopefully.
Right.
And so for any program that's starting to see that success, if you can string that together, you're more likely to have it year in and year out.
Some teams go to state title appearances or the bank appearances, and they come back and they're like, "Where did my roster go? They got me here last time." And I don't think that's quite the case. You guys have a decent amount of people coming back, don't you?
We return most of our skill guys, minus Cole and Garrett, aforementioned. They're pretty much all back. We're fortunate to have a quarterback back in Carson Dybel, who will be a 3-year starter for us. We're very fortunate to have Cale Holthaus come back, and he played some games for us his freshman year even. And so it really starts with those two. And then it just builds from there. We're excited to see Johnny Moore in a sophomore campaign, if you will, as a junior. And some of our other skill guys that were sophomores last year who contributed, a lot that are going to be now juniors. And then some of those juniors that are now seniors that are going to continue to build on success that this grade has had since they were in second grade. Our 27 class, they just win. And that's in every sport, whether that's football, basketball, hockey, and baseball, right? Our baseball team went to state this last spring, and a lot of those players play football for me as well. And, again, when you got that culture of winning around you, good things can happen.
Talk about Holthaus for a little bit. I know the one game that I got to watch him in person was that Eastridge game, and he had such a good game, was really impressive. Again, going against an Eastridge team that is no joke every year, especially with a good defense. Just talk about him, what you've seen from him up close.
Kale's an incredible human being first and foremost. He comes from a great family. He's very grounded and well-rounded, right? But what I enjoy most about him is how hard he runs. And that really buys into that blue collar mentality of it's going to take four guys to tackle me every play. It's not one player that's going to bring me down. And the confidence that he has is through the roof, which is wonderful. And I know Kale would be the first to say that he's had some incredible linemen over his 3 real main years of varsity football. And so that has been, part of his great success. But, he's going to be a senior captain for us now. And so we're going to ask a little more out of a leadership role. But the expectations for himself and from us, remain high. He could do 2 things this year that could be pretty exciting. He could break our school rushing record. Towards the end of the season, he's a little off, but that record's been up since 2016. And more excitingly for me, I think, is he could break the school touchdown record. He's about 10 away from that, and that was set in 1967. So pretty cool, pretty fun journey for him. But he's remained the same Kale the entire time. He's grounded, he's humble, he's a great teammate, and he's fun to coach.
You already mentioned him, Johnny Moore, I think if people don't know about him, they're going to know about him soon, is my guess. I've got to see him in a lot of 7-on-7 stuff, and just the ball skills he has for a receiver at the age, he could definitely, you can look at him and he goes, oh yeah, that dude is definitely going to play some sort of varsity football next year, because he's playing with, it looks like children compared to him, but that's just how much of an athlete, how big he is. First of all, I kind of want to know your plan, because Monticello, you guys like to run the ball over there, and he's a receiver, and you also have him as an outside linebacker too. I guess I just want to know how you're going to utilize an athlete like that.
Well, in case Coach Hamilton's listening over at Elk River, we're not going to give too much away, but you're right. Johnny is such an incredible athlete, and I think you touched on it, the flexibility to have him be in a backfield, to catch a football over anyone, to block on offense. He does some incredible things. So I think what you will see is Johnny moving around. And so he's switching to jersey number 7 this year. So you're going to see number 7, all over the place. And then on defense, kind of the same thing. I think he has that outside linebacker build, and I think he's probably an inside linebacker at the next level. But we played him at free safety last year. So again, he's so dynamic, and he's such a coachable kid that you're able to do things with him that keep people guessing. So you can't just hone in on, where's Johnny Moore? He's really going to be, unmatch-upable, if you will.
Yeah, 7's going to be on the scouting report. Teams are going to figure out about that. So keep your secret for how it's going to be out. I guess, are you a coach that sets expectations going into the season, or kind of what's your stance? What have you seen? What you've seen this summer and scrimmages, practices, does that shape how you view this upcoming season?
No, I think we all have the same. We talk about this with our leadership group. We have about 20 kids, juniors and seniors, that are on our leadership council with our captains. And, we meet every Monday, and we talk about the expectations and, really the expectations. We have a couple as coaches, right? Make sure the locker room's clean, things like that. But, things like being on time, or what does it look like to be a Monticello football player? How is the community going to view you? Those expectations come from our leadership group. And on our first day, they will get up in front of the rest of their teammates and say, this is our expectations for our team moving forward for this year. But we've had a nice summer. It's like I said, the great thing was our baseball team made it to state. And so, there was a lot of baseball to be played, and that's awesome, and there's basketball to be played. And so, we've kind of had kids in and out, which is fine. We went to University of North Dakota for team camp, and we were fortunate to have pretty much all of our guys with us. And we performed well up there, and we came out healthy for the most part. And so that was important. Right. And so the expectations, right. Every kid, you could ask any kid in the state, and I'm pretty sure they'd all say they want to go to state. Right. And so if that's everyone's goal, then how do you make that goal happen? Right. And so we talk about the process of getting to where everybody else wants to get to, because the reality is only 2 teams get to go in a class right to the state title game, whereas 100 others are sitting on their couch or have moved on to their winter sport. So but that has to be player driven, and that's what we believe as coaches, and our players have done a nice job of kind of latching on to that and kind of making it their own.
Well, awesome. I can't wait to see what you guys do this season. And hey, maybe a bank run's in store. So good luck this season, Coach.
Thank you.